Okay, calling to order the Joint Committee on Ways and Means and Housing. This morning we'll hear from the different housing agencies who will present their biennial budget requests. So first we'll begin with Hawaii Housing Finance Development Corporation. Good morning.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members, Dean Minakami, Executive Director, Hawaii Housing Finance Development Corporation, which is David Oy, our Finance Manager. I'll quickly provide a breakdown of our recent financing activity at HHFDC, in particular for RHRF and DERF. We'll then discuss new programs that we're planning to implement. So quickly, HHFDC's mission is to advance housing opportunities for residents of Hawaii, and this includes providing rental and for sale housing, as well as programs that promote homeownership. HHFDC is not the only state agency involved in providing affordable housing. Most of our programs are geared at households at 50% AMI and above. For the unsheltered population, the Department of Human Services and the Statewide Office of Homelessness and Housing Solutions have programs for those experiencing homelessness. The Hawaii Public Housing Authority traditionally has supported households at 50% AMI and below through public housing and the Section 8 voucher program. And at HHFDC, we target households at 50% AMI and above through a variety of programs that provide rental and for sale housing and home ownership programs. The Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program is the federal government's primary program that promotes affordable housing. And this graph here shows the number of applications we've received from 2010 to 2024. You can see that prior to 2021, we had on average about 12 applications per year. For the past 4 years, though, applications more than doubled, where in 2021 and 2022, we had 28 applications, and the past 2 years, we had 29 applications. So there's been strong demand for LIHTC financing in recent years. Corresponding with the rise and increase in LIHTC applications, we've seen a dramatic increase in requests for private activity bonds. And for those who are not as familiar with the PABs, for what's called the 4% LIHTC, 50% of the eligible basis, or you can think of it as cost, must be financed with private activity bonds. So as the number of applications increase, we would expect to see applications for bonds increase also. But we're also seeing those that we're seeing larger projects apply, and because of cost increases, the request for bonds is going up. So last year we had in total requests for over $1 billion in private activity bonds. And of course, our bond cap set by the Treasury is about a bit over $350 million. So we are heavily oversubscribed on bonds. This shows a breakdown of our 2024 funding round. In 2024, we had 25 applications for RHRF that totaled over $600 million. We awarded 5 projects and $64 million of RHRF. And presently, there is a available cash balance in RHRF of $163 million, which we use for this year's funding round. And the funding round is currently open, and applications are due on February 14th. I know that a question might come up, why did we not award more projects last year if we had cash on hand? And that's because we made a conscious decision to focus on project readiness, more so than in past years. And when I say project readiness, it means how quickly can a project commence construction. In the past, we would have awarded more projects, and that has led to some issues which I'll go into next. The main problem with awarding a project too early is that construction costs are uncertain. We did an analysis of prior projects, and in 2021 to 2023, 41% of awarded projects came back to HFDC for an increase in funds. So this means that projects submitted an application, they were vetted by staff, they were found to be worthy. The board makes an award, and then prior to commencing construction, they come back to HFDC and say they need more money or the project can't go. And the increases, they were not small. On average, they were 27% of their budget. And in terms of dollars, from 2021 to 2023, we had almost $93 million in RHF requests just to cover cost increases, and about $114 million in private activity bonds just to cover cost increases. So we saw that this is not sustainable. It's not something we want to do. So we reset expectations this year, told developers, we're not going to give you an award until you're really ready to proceed with your project. So in summary, we found that the problems with awarding a project too early is that it reduces funding for new projects in the subsequent year, raises issues of fairness where project costs too intentionally low with the expectation that HFDC will just fund the increase. And most importantly, it ties up financial resources. If a project isn't breaking ground for 2 or 3 years, those are monies that could be used for other purposes.
But do you have an annual goal of how many units you want to try to get developed?
With LIHTC, we can probably, just with LIHTC, probably with RHF fund between 12 to 1,500 units. So that would
What's
be
your
the
goal
goal.
to get developed? So not just using LIHTC. HHFDC should have a goal, because we keep talking about these large numbers of 50,000 housing shortage, but I don't find in your annual reports or anything that you guys have a strategic plan to actually chip away at that number with a real plan. It's almost like you just throw things out there, people react, and you just kind of go day to day, but you don't have a plan to actually decrease the shortage.
Well, we do use our programs to facilitate housing development, but for
Yeah,
for
it's
sale
just a yes or
housing,
no.
no, we don't have a specific number.
Yeah, so why is that though?
Because for sale housing, that is largely driven by the private
But
sector.
still, your statutes are much broader than just this one program. So between you and the other housing agencies, I see zero as far as trying to get to the number that we have to get to actually reduce our housing shortage.
We do have the DERF equity program, which I'll cover later in this
But these are all
presentation.
programs. So these are all programs that people apply for, and then however number that you get. But you don't have a specific goal every year to say, okay, this year we got to try to get X amount built, or leverage your dollars in some of the funds that you have to build infrastructure to encourage units to go up. I don't see anything strategic. I just see a program and people respond, and then you review. So it's almost so bureaucratic.
Well, for the DERF equity program, that provides us a means to move projects ahead. And so I'll get into that later in the presentation. But that is until now, there wasn't a way for HHFDC to really put money into a project to make it pencil.
Yeah, but you guys know what the goals are. You guys can come to the ledge and say, in order for us to get 10,000 units by X amount year, by in 3 years, this is what we need. So if we don't fund it, okay, then it's on us. But you don't even ask. You guys don't even develop a strategy. So that's my concern, and then that was my concern when what I talked to the DBED director about, when I saw raises throughout the staff without any real objectives of how many units we need to build in a certain period of time so that we can actually solve this issue. It's just reactive. And if we're only going to be reactive doing same old, then why are people getting compensated? Because when I look, you in your annual report from 2023, you guys said, let me look for it now. You built what, 14,000 units or something like that since you were established. That only comes out to an average of 792 units a year. That's not going to get us to our goal. So I'm not sure why the agency isn't a lot more aggressive. And like I told you, if we don't fund it, that's on us. So I don't like the lump sum funding because all the lump sum funding does is just allow you to keep opening up and you just keep reacting and you just take proposals. It's not proactive to try to reach a certain number of units.
Okay, and I think with the new programs that we have, we are being more proactive, and that will
Yeah,
help
but you
to
still should
address.
show us a strategic plan. You should show us a strategic plan that says this is what we need to get to the 50,000 by year 2035 or year 2040. And this is how we're going to get there. It's very similar to our ERS plan. We know we have a specific date on when we're going to be able to pay off the liabilities. We work backwards, we fund it every year, we have a goal. And as the market changes, we know, okay, you know what, it might add several more years, or it might reduce several more years, or we might need to add a little bit more, but there's a plan. I don't see that coming from you guys.
Okay, we can work on that.
Question. So do you have someone or several people that go out and look at available lease spaces? For instance, in Mililani, there's a large area where Long's used to be in a shopping center with Safeway. That's been empty for years. So something like that would have been a
Being
good
creative.
opportunity, yeah.
From time to time, we are made aware of opportunities, and we do meet
No, I
with.
didn't ask if you were made aware of. I said if you guys go out and look. I mean, do you even look in the papers? I don't know how. They're just, it's not going to come to you.
Yeah,
You guys have to
yeah.
go out and look.
It's the same issue, being more proactive instead of reactive.
We primarily focus on state lands, so we do look at the inventory of state lands and see if housing can be developed on state lands.
Why is that?
Because if state lands are underutilized, so are the lowest hanging fruit.
Yeah, but you've come in before. I mean, there are other departments that came in before and said, can we want money to purchase this land. So if you guys see parcels out there that you think are low hanging fruit that are not state land, why don't you come in or you use your funds to go buy them?
There are times that we have considered that, yes.
Yeah, but see, that's the whole thing, right? I think you guys hear about it, you consider it, people might tell you, but where is it? You took the initiative. You're driving it. You want it. We can't want housing more than you do. That's your job, your primary job. That's part of our job. Okay, you can continue.
Okay, this slide shows the number of closings we had for RHRF last year. So this is a record number of closings that we had in terms of number of projects and dollars dispersed. We dispersed about $268 million in RHRF, which will lead to the construction of 1,546 units. And just to make the distinction, an award is separate from a closing. Award is when our board makes a commitment to a project. Closing occurs when a project has all of its permits, bonds, insurance, everything needed by us and the other financiers involved to award funds to a project. That's when they're ready to start construction. And in most cases, it's permits that hold up financial closing. What we like to see is projects like 330 Kuele and Kaiolino, where they closed within 1 year of getting a financing award. But as you can see from this chart, there are a number of projects where it was 2 years, 3 years between the time that they received an award and that they could commence construction. That's what we're trying to get away from.
Yeah, question. So when you say close, that's not construction completed. Do you have dates on that so that we know?
Oh,
that
yes,
these
we do
projects are-
track
you're
also
tracking that.
after closing, how long construction will take and when the
So you-
building will be ready for occupancy.
So if these projects, do you have that data on when they actually are built?
Yeah, we have
And-
data on when these projects commence construction, which is typically shortly after closing. And we also have data on how long construction is anticipated, so when that project will come online.
What is sort of the average date amount of time between closing and construction completion?
It really depends on the type of unit. For a high rise, it's typically at least 2 years. For more garden style apartments, it can be maybe a year.
And you
But-
monitor that?
Yes.
actual-
Yep.
That's my point.
Thank you.
So for this biennium, our CIP requests are $20 million each year for DERF. $50 million of each year
Yeah.
for
And how
our,
did you come up with those numbers?
this was based on our projection, our cash flow projection and what we anticipate needing for our LIHTC programs, for tier 2 funding and for DERF.
Meaning what? You just think that that's the amount of money you need for developers to come in?
It's looking for DERF, looking at our obligation and its projected expenses. For RHRF, it's looking at our projected closings and our targeted number of units we'd like to fund. And for tier 2,
And
it's
how many is that? Because how do you get from 292 a year? The goal has to be higher than that, right? I mean, I would think the board would say, okay, if our average is 792 units a year, what do we do to get it to 850, to 900?
well, I think for the
950?
next couple of years, we're projecting well over 1,000 units a year for,
Yeah, but that's not your track record. So that even makes it hard to believe, because so far you have not achieved that at all.
for projects the next 2 years. These are projects under construction, so they will be delivered.
And mainly where? Because
Excuse
we
me?
still have, you guys are part of the TOD council, right? You co-chair with
Marielle.
Office of Planning, and I still haven't seen too many requests from you guys saying, in order for us to implement TOD, we're gonna need these monies. Because to me, that's the lowest hanging fruit. You're not gonna need parking requirements, right? You don't need parking, or you can have minimal parking. It needs regional infrastructure, which your statute allows, which you guys, when was the last? You're only reacting to Waihole, Waikane, some of these other ones, but it's not like you're gonna try to take a TOD and try to build out infrastructure so that we can spur development.
Yeah, and we've been working on the Ibele Kapolama Infrastructure Master Plan, and many of the improvements there, the city has plans to fund those. So what we're looking at is the gaps to fill what infrastructure is needed for the state projects.
Yeah, but we own 2,000 acres of land around the rail line, the state.
Mhm.
And, we also have almost the entire TOD by, right? What's that center that you were talking about? Proc Center.
Mhm.
And there's really no plans to develop that out. Where HHFDC could take the bull by the horns right already, ask us for money to start putting in infrastructure. I mean, UH was trying to do West Oahu with Stanford Carr, and I don't know what happened. That failed.
Well, we've been working with HCDA and UH on plans for housing at UH West Oahu.
Yeah. But some of that is the ledge putting in money. We've put in money and you're reacting to it. What I'm looking for is you guys saying, look, these are good projects. You vetted them and you're coming to us asking us to fund it. All we're getting now are lump sum requests, no strategic planning.
Well, I think for DERF, we do have, we do look ahead and forecast our needs.
Yeah, but I'm of the mindset not to fund these anymore, these lump sums. I would rather see strategic planning where you come in and say, I want these properties, I want money for this infrastructure, I want money for this development, and we actually fund it using that approach. The lump sum is like, we're just hoping and praying that something's going to happen, that somebody is going to apply for these funds and that you are going to get the projections you are, and the market changes and they might not give you the same amount of units that you anticipated. So then we're stuck with the 792 per year again.
Okay, I can understand that approach for DERF, but I think that RHRF does need to be funded because there are a number of state projects which we'd like to move forward, including Mayor Right Homes, there's Front Street Apartments, there's our 690 Pohukaina project. These are all state agency projects using LIHTC funding, which are going to need RHRF funding.
Then why don't you want to give more points in the QAP to state projects? Why do you want to give it all to these private projects?
We did adjust the points to give more to state projects. And basically a state project would be awarded once they're ready to proceed. If a state project isn't awarded, it's because they were not ready to start construction within 12 months.
In your upcoming QAP draft, can you identify for me one area where you want to increase the likelihood that state projects get funded?
Well, we have just started the review process. We haven't had a meeting for the upcoming QAP revision.
But you've already put out a list of talking points for what you want to achieve. in that QAP
That's
draft.
just a list of what could be talked about. That's not a complete list of, we're not limiting it to that list.
All right. So I think, Dean, the question is, I still am trying to wrap my head around how we came up with this whole readiness thing, because part of it is you're essentially closing the spigot of developers, because essentially developers need some type of certainty that they're going to get an award, right? So by closing off and really limiting the awards because of readiness, then a lot of these guys aren't going to proceed until they get an award. So it's like a catch-22.
That's not what we heard. We have heard from developers that if they know the expectation, they will meet it.
Right, but at the expense of also not, you have 163 million of cash balance in the 2025 funding round. So essentially, we don't even need this infusion if you still have that much money in the account.
It would be needed for the 2026 funding round. That's where that 50 million.
But then at some point, we would have to give you a year, because it's just a trickle down effect. Because I think what you need to prove to us is that you can actually allocate all these funds. So if you're not going to allocate, then no sense we give you the money.
The legislature could take that approach. I think it does provide some certainty for the developers that the funding is there when the funding round opens, that there is a pot of funds available. Otherwise, we have to wait for the legislature to appropriate funds. But I understand your point also.
But why, if you know how long it takes to close the project, why are we not awarding? Because at some point you got to factor that in, right? You know that it's going to take a while to close. We know it takes a long time to permit. I think a lot of people just say just oversubscribe, but you guys haven't even touched that possibility of oversubscribing, because you know that there is something, there is going to be a time lag, right? And then when you talk about cost overruns, there has to be some expectation that if you're going to apply and you're going to get awarded, I think you guys put yourself in a situation where they know you're just going to give them the money. So then that's why they're doing this. So it's kind of a catch-22. So if you hold the line once you're awarded and you're not going to give them the funds, then they know to don't ask, and then maybe they won't apply so early. So it's like you're creating a culture of, like, to me, you're creating a culture of shutting off the pipeline, and because you weren't setting high expectations on cost overruns, right? You weren't keeping the cost overruns under control. So now we're in this position where it's just kind of, we're all messed up at this point, right? And I know you're trying to clean it up, but I don't think this is the way, because I told you, how are we going to go fight for you and get you more RHRF when you can't even spend what we give you?
And Senator, I completely agree that we have to change the culture and expectations from developers of HHF.
But it's the cost overruns that are killing you, but you guys are the ones that control the cost overruns.
And this year, there are projects where we did not approve the cost overruns. So those projects have basically just disappeared. They're not going to proceed.
Okay, so then it frees up money, right? So you have to factor that into the calculation, and okay, maybe there's a percentage that won't proceed. You go start from the beginning, right? But I think the readiness factor, I think, the chair and I are just it's driving us crazy with this readiness thing, because you just don't award. And I don't think that's the solution to not award. If it's the highest project that needs to proceed, let them proceed if they applied, right? And if they don't then do what they need to do, then tell them sorry. And then hopefully they'll think next time, okay, we better apply when we're actually ready. But we shouldn't be setting that expectation. If they're the highest scorer, give them the award.
And this year was a reset. I mean, this year were the fewest there were fewer awards because we were resetting expectations.
No, but you're stopping the pipeline. You just are not awarding and you had money.
I don't think we're stopping the pipeline because I think
But the
projects
number of
awarded-
units are not as, by taking that approach, you're not producing the number of units that we need to produce fast enough.
I think this year we're seeing more projects that are ready to award, so we'll have more awards this year than we have in past years. And those projects will be able to break ground within, say, hopefully within a year. So they'll be they'll be available, they'll be open within 3 years, 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. And most of those, I guess part of it is when going back to TOD and urban redevelopment, I know the Kahalui has one. Just reacting to developers wherever they may have land is different than the state's approach of trying to develop density along the rail lines or in the urban cores of each county. So it still isn't to me as strategic as it should be because you're just reacting to developers where they have land versus where the state policy is of where we should be pushing development.
Okay, understood.
So if you should be taking some of that money and at least put it in infrastructure to spur private development. Because the city's not going to do it. And if we can connect one of our projects, maybe at the end of some or throughout TOD, then developers can hook into that. That already reduces the costs.
Well, I mean, the challenge with infrastructure also is that it may be that we're funding that infrastructure, but we may not get a return on that unless there's a mechanism.
But all of these, same thing, we're basically subsidizing all this housing and we're not getting money back from it.
Oh, for our DERF loans, we do get money back. Also for RHRF, they do get paid back.
Yeah, but it's a revolving fund and we keep putting money in. So we're not getting the money we need back fast enough to go so that the funds are sustainable. We've been adding millions of dollars into this fund when it's a revolving fund.
Mhm.
I just think the strategy has to be different. Going back to what you guys are planning with Office of Planning, TOD, it's not aligned. It's like you guys are still doing your own thing without actually doing the work, implementing the work that you guys are doing for TOD Council.
Okay. Well, we do coordinate with HCDA and OPSD.
Yeah, but it's not being proactive enough to build the density where the state's policy is where we should have density.
Okay.
You stated that you have 163 million in available cash balance for the 2025 funding round, and that's even if the legislature doesn't appropriate a single additional dime to rental housing, right? I'm also seeing, based on your numbers, that as of last year, 2024, you had 519 million cash in the rental housing revolving fund. Can you explain the discrepancy?
Yes, the difference is that the cash balance includes funding that was already awarded. So that includes the $268 million, for example, that was awarded. Before project close, it shows those as a cash balance in RHRF because the funds haven't gone out, but the funds have been committed to a project. So there are many cases where the funds are committed and they're sitting as showing as a cash balance for years until the project can close and the funds go out to the project.
So if a project gets awarded in year one and closes in maybe year two, in what year do the funds leave the rental housing revolving fund?
It depends if it's a 4% or 9% plot, but generally it's in year two. Generally, when the project closes, the funds go to the project.
So according to your own projections, even if the legislature does not appropriate a single additional dime to this fund, the balance won't hit zero until the year 2038.
Well, no, we wouldn't have funds available to award projects. I mean, it's very likely we could award all $163 million of RHRF next year.
Well, you do have a dedicated portion of the conveyance tax. You're also receiving interest on these large cash balances.
Mhm.
So actually you do have tens of
Right,
millions.
there will be
of dollars in funding.
infusions through the conveyance tax, yes, and payback of loans.
Yeah, but your cash balance now is what?
Available cash balance is $163 million.
And what's the total?
Roughly $400 to $500 million.
Because if some of these projects are falling out, you still have the cash that you're kind of holding for these projects.
Yeah, well, we're hoping that projects don't fall out.
Well, the point is I think we're looking at this number and it goes back to my earlier point is that why aren't you oversubscribing? Because you know what the timing is of the closing, right? And so you can oversubscribe and push these projects out because it's a cash flow problem at that point. It's not an award problem. You're just so focused on the award and so conservative that we could be doing more projects and getting them into the pipeline and worrying about the cash when the cash needs to happen. It's almost like you need a two-tier system, right? So that's what I told you guys you got to work on. But for some reason, you guys don't even want to touch that. But it bothers us that you have that big of a cash balance and we're not leveraging that.
So you'd like us to award more projects than we have funds available for?
Yeah. And you come back and ask for more when you're short.
But you got to keep an eye on that cash balance because until you bring that down, that cash balance, because it sounds like, you're just awarding so conservatively, these awards aren't getting out the door. You got to factor that all in.
But I don't
The whole thing is to get housing up faster, not like delay it.
Something to consider though is just because we award the project doesn't mean it's going to go any quicker.
But at least it's in the pipeline.
But there might be another project next year which could go even quicker.
Okay, then
wasn't
get
awarded.
them in the pipeline, and whoever can get the money out of you quicker, then they get the money. So they have to hurry up.
That's the direction of the legislature. We can look at just awarding all
The
projects.
direction is to get housing up fast. Get it going. If
Okay.
not, we're stuck in this reactive system that's not producing the numbers that we need. And it's definitely not fulfilling the plans that we have for the council that you're co-chair. So I don't feel like every agency, it's awkward. They all go to the TOD council, they all plan, they all agree, they go back to their agencies, and they don't coordinate anything that they plan together as a group. We haven't had one budget request coming back to us saying the TOD council requests these funds so that we can implement. We got to get it faster. How many more slides you got?
About, I think, 8 more slides.
Okay.
A question, one just, so when you award, do you give them a time frame? Like you have a year to get this out, and if you don't, then you can pull the money back so that you actually give them some deadline where they have to start producing.
You want to take that one?
Excuse me. Yes, we do. Every award that we give out for RHRF has an expiration to close, which is a year.
Yeah, but
At
then
a
that
time.
goes to Senator Hashimoto's point
Correct.
then.
When to pull it
So when
And
they
you should oversubscribe.
So when they come back in if they can't close within that time, we have to evaluate them for an extension of time. So,
Yeah, so that's a false problem that you have, that you want to hold on to some money because you think that it's spoken for, but really you know that some guys are not going to meet those deadlines.
right. So I think that, it's when we get these requests for these extensions, we do look at the progress they're making, and most of the time they do show that they're going to close within that next extension period. So at that time we have to weigh. We do have
See,
to
that
weigh.
goes back to what he's saying. It's the culture. Then you think, oh, good, I can just ask for an extension. So you're holding the money and these guys are playing the game so that they can just take longer and longer. And
Yeah.
then the money's not getting spent.
No, I agree with you, Chair. There's not been a past precedent of rescinding awards from developers in the just in the vein that we don't want to be seen as killing a project or pulling money.
If they're
back.
not ready, they're not ready. It's not your fault.
Okay. Yeah, and
But
that-
there's somebody behind them that's hopefully ready that we can fund and get going.
understood.
Do you have more than one loan out to a lender for various projects at the same time?
Or multiple financing.
For
Yeah, they're taking from different parts of money within HHFDC.
yes, so they'll have a reservation of private activity bonds and they'll have their RHRF loan. So they will use those bonds to qualify with another lender, a senior lender, to finance that portion of the debt. Yes.
Do you guys monitor it if they're not moving the money or lending the money and you're still giving them money on for other projects?
Um,
Or
Sorry.
holding it for them.
well, yeah, yes, the funds are reserved.
Yeah.
So it is held, yes,
Yeah.
because it's more stating that there's a commitment of funds to the project. So when the project is ready, they'll look back on it and say, are all the funding sources in place? And the funding has to be there for them to continue at that
Yeah,
time.
but my question is, are you monitoring it to make sure that they're using it and not, not having the money move out to where it belongs?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes,
Because if they're not doing their job, I don't know why you keep. giving
No,
them
so
money.
it sounds like they're monitoring it, but they're not willing to pull it back if they don't meet the deadline. That's the issue, is and then it's being held
Yeah,
yes.
because there's no incentive for them to.
to
To
rush,
move it,
yeah,
yeah.
to move.
I think and I agree. And I think it's, as I mentioned, it was more of, if we pull financing on a project, the assumption is that the project will, for lack of a better word, die and not proceed without that commitment in place. So we've been hesitant to do that in the past, because when these projects are working towards their meeting their closing, they are moving towards the deadline, albeit not as quickly, obviously, as we had wanted now. But I think that's what we're trying to balance. And I understand about building up the pipeline, to give it to the next person in line.
So who determines, oh, we're going to give them the extension?
Staff evaluates it, my staff and I, and then we have the executive director evaluate it, and then we take it to the board to see if they want to give an extension or not.
So the board is the ultimate approval process. They say they have the final say.
Well, we have discretion. We have an administrative extension that's given up front. That can be done by the director or his designee, but ultimately the board has the say on when.
See, I would
extensions
think
go in place.
it just has to change. It should be that you don't have the discretion to extend. They don't make it, they don't make it. It's only the board has it. That way it's public, it can be aired. If there's actually legit reasons, then the board can discuss it in public. But up to that point, you internally, HHFDC should not allow for any extensions. It should only be at the board level. That way we create this culture that you don't meet it, you lose the money, the next guy's going to get it.
We
Thank
can
you.
do that. That'll put more pressure on developers
Yes.
to meet their timelines.
We definitely can.
And
do
then it doesn't look so arbitrary that it's staff determining it.
Agreed.
Or additionally, Chair, you could do what private lenders do, which is to take equity stakes in the project take value in exchange for value. Do you ever do that?
Could we do that for LIHTC?
We can't do that for LIHTC, because that is equity that comes into the project from investors. Our stake in the project is normally just the loan interest that we get through the RHRF loan. So that's our collateral interest in the project. But that is something that I think, Chair, you and I had discussed at some point, that we could explore that further.
For a non-LIHTC project?
For a
that might
non-LIHTC
work.
No,
project.
even for LIHTC projects, you can take stakes after the, 30 years are up or whatever. You could also request longer affordability periods. There's all kinds of things you could do to get value for us, the tax. No commercial lender would just approve extensions and in additional infusions, rubber
Yeah.
stamp, without getting anything
Yeah.
else in return.
Yeah.
We're not Santa Claus. But you treat the taxpayer money like it's just free money.
Well, it goes out to, I think, I agree that the cost of the rental housing revolving fund loan is small. And that again is to make the project feasible to build. But I agree that I think it's a culture change that has to happen and an expectation change that we need to work on. And if we can hold the line better, and I'll have support in that, in holding the line better.
Well,
to
you
these same
shouldn't have
projects.
discretion to do that,
Right.
because part of it could be political too. Developers could call anybody within government and put pressure on you guys at the staff level, and then you would provide the extension. Versus you don't have that authority to provide extensions, and now it all has to go to the board. It all has to be aired out.
Yeah, understood.
I just want to know how, you don't claw back any money, so do you have data on how many renewals you've given, like how long a period has a project?
Yes.
Can we see some of that and see how long it takes?
Yes. We can provide that to you, Senator.
Thank
Vice
you.
Chair. Thank you.
Senator Favela.
Yeah, so what bothers me, question that I want to ask you guys is that you keep saying the culture and culture like that, but why does it have to come from this body to tell you guys these things? Because like how the senator said, you get multiple people there and they're gonna fall out, but you're worrying about the project failing. But it's not you guys making it fail, it's the guys that are coming in making it fail. So you guys holding accountability again, like what Senator De La Cruz said, you guys making these decisions and nobody know what's going on. Do you know how much property he has? Senator De La Cruz said by the Kroc Center? You know how much acres?
Hundreds,
Mhm.
if not thousands.
And why?
Yeah.
And why? Because you guys said, right, we're asking you questions, you guys don't know how much acres there. So how much know you budgeting to have these projects put out there if you don't know?
Are you entering into MOAs with some of the landowners, meaning other state agencies?
With UH, for example, we have an MOA with them
Yeah.
to develop housing at UH.
But what about
Oahu.
Kroc Center?
No, not with Kroc
'Cause
Center.
that is one of the lowest hanging fruits for the, like a master plan.
Infrastructure,
I mean,
everything is
it's
there.
it could be way more dynamic than even Kaka'ako because the state owns almost the entire thing, except for Kroc Center. And then there's a small sliver, I think that's DHHL, that's already developed with subdivision. But the rest is all greenfield or brownfield that
Yes.
is ready.
Sure. So I just don't want to confuse the situation because I think what I assume you may go back to doing is you're going to go back to this readiness thing. But I don't think that's what we're concerned about. We're concerned we look into the fund and we see how much money you have unspent. And that's what's really bothering us in my mind, right? And so if you go after readiness, that is not what we are concerned about. We are concerned about you figuring out how to get to spend that fund down quicker. Proactively. And so I don't think stopping the pipeline at the beginning is what your problem is. I think it's processing whoever's in the pipeline and making sure that you either oversubscribe, but you get that money out, right? And so stopping it at the beginning to enter the door is not going to solve your problem because we want to see that money out. So I just want to make sure that we are all clear on what's bothering us versus, you know, what you guys are trying to do, because I don't think what you're trying to do now is you're going to, I don't think that's what's going to solve your problem.
And most of your positions are exempt, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So if they can't change the culture, then you have the freedom at will.
Well, it's not the culture of the employees, it's the culture of the developers. So,
No,
but
but
we hear what you're
okay,
saying, but we
but
can,
who is the tail and who is the dog in this situation?
Mhm. And this is
The
why
developer is leading you.
we will reset expectations.
So the employees have to know that DHHFTC has to produce. They got to be accountable, not the developer. You guys are accountable.
Mhm.
You're passing out the money. So you have to figure out how you're going to hold your employees and you're accountable to make sure that this is going to change, not the developer. They'll react to you guys. That's part of the problem if you're reacting to the developer.
So does HHFTC have more than one lender per project?
Yeah.
Yes.
And do you guys monitor, I mean, how is it divided? It can just go until project is sold or?
Well, do you have a slide that shows how you're organized? Because I
we-
think that's part of seeing how you guys are.
No,
your
we
org
don't, we
chart.
don't have an org chart in our
Okay,
slide.
why don't you provide an org chart to the committee with some of the with the responsibilities of each
I guess what I'm
division?
getting at is there incentive for the lenders to move on the project? If they're holding up, then can you take away and give to other lenders who are moving?
You can, we're stuck on 8, so you gotta.
So I think, talking about our new programs now, David. Oh, no.
So one of the goals for HHFDC this year is to develop new programs and new uses within the existing structure of the RHRF. We want to be able to revolve the fund faster, as well as diversify the types of housing that it can be used for. So one of the programs we're looking at is rehabilitation and preservation loans, mainly of existing properties that are coming close to the end of their affordability or are falling out of affordability shortly. These loans would be fairly short term, about 10 years, and they would be low interest in exchange for an extension of the affordability. So we would want to record amend the declaration on the property or record a new one to extend the affordability requirements. We would most likely target between 80 and 100% AMI, just so it can be sort of a naturally occurring affordable housing, you know, a missing middle rental project to account for the shortage in that supply. These would mainly be modernization projects, smaller projects such as HVAC upgrades, major capital repairs such as roofing or solar. So more along the lines of modernization for the project in exchange for affordability. So we could estimate that about $36 million could fund about 3 projects, smaller unit. We're talking about smaller projects, so possibly 90 units total based on the type of project that this would be aimed at. In addition, we're looking at a refined tier 2 or workforce housing loan program. So these would be mixed income rental projects. We would want to incorporate some of the lessons that we learned from the initial pilot project. We would increase the AMI up to 140% AMI tenants to help support the project so that it can stand on its own and revolve its funds quicker. We put a maximum loan term of 40 years, so the money would have to be refinanced or paid off within 40 years. We would put a maximum contribution of 35% RHRF into the capital stack. So what that would do is that forces a developer to put in their own equity into the project, because the senior loan wouldn't be able to cover the entire gap. The developer would have to put in a portion of the funds from their own money. And then again, we would want to, here we go, prioritize readiness again, but mainly we think that the importance is the funds would come back quicker and they would be more self-supporting due to the wider range of AMIs. So this would be about 3 to 4 projects. So you could see about 550 to 600 additional units.
40 years seems kind of long.
Yeah, so what we do is we want to make it similar to the senior debt, but perhaps give it a little longer just to make sure that they can pay back the loan in a sufficient amount of time with the debt service that they're going to have. Most of the tier 2 loans that we did award in the previous round forecasted about a term of 50 years, but 2 of them are forecasted to pay within 40 years. So that's how we picked 40, because we've seen that it's possible for them to be serviced within that time period.
So they continue the project for another 40 years to give the 100% or lower AMI rental.
Yes, thank you. And that's a point of clarification I think I should make, is that the loan term for the RHRF loan doesn't equate to the affordability period. You know, we would want the affordability period obviously to be as long as possible. The traditional ones we have now, 50 to 60 years, even longer. If possible, we would incentivize that. This limit is just on the term of the loan so that it would come back, but it doesn't directly correlate to the affordability period.
So if you do give them a loan, can you extend the period? So
Of
at 60, you add another 30 years to.
To the affordability? Yes, you know, we can find ways at the end of the term to either, they may need, again, these rehab loans, these capital repairs. So everything we could do at a reduced rate to make it more developer friendly would always be in exchange to extend the affordability or renew a lease if it was a lease with a state agency. All with the
How
goal
much
of,
would the rent be for this type of project?
I don't have the latest figures right now, but I think for 140% AMI, it's probably about 3,000 a unit for a 2-bedroom at 140% AMI. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now.
$4,385 a month.
So I think that rent of 140 is what helps support the lower AMI
Who's gonna
units.
be able, how is that affordable then?
It's just the limit of it's the limit of what our statute allows us to, for
4,000 what?
380.
it's below, it'll be below the mark. I mean, it's
Just to clarify, I don't think any applicant for tier 2 funds would render pro forma 140% AMI rents. It just allows households up to 140% AMI to also stay in the project. It broadens the market pool for developers, basically.
But are you looking at
that's what it-
affordability when you actually give this loan out so that you can be able to control that price? Because that's, I mean, why are we giving them a loan unless we can keep the tenants in there at an affordable price? Would that be a condition of getting a loan?
Yeah, they have, whenever they're evaluated, they have to pro forma out based on their number of units, their AMI levels per unit, basically their unit mix, and pro forma out the performance of the project for the term of the loan. So we would evaluate that to make sure it's feasible, it's reasonable, and that they can do that. As my director said, most projects won't put in a tremendous number of these higher AMI units, but what having a balanced number of those allows the project to do is have units at maybe 80, 85, 90 at a lesser cost with lesser subsidy because the actual rent income from those higher units will support it. So we always evaluate for feasibility and how realistic the project is based on the pro forma.
But these are all units that are inhabited, right? They have tenants already and they're renovating,
Oh, no, the tier 2 units would be new construction.
new construction.
Yes.
But this was already, we had that one bill, right? That
Yes.
allowed this.
Yeah.
So do you have evaluation of what occurred so far?
Yes, so we had 4 awards. We were allocated through that bill, 150 million. We awarded 4 projects for 146 million. 2 of those projects are closed. Well, one of those projects is closed and under construction. 2 of them are in the Kaka'ako area and have had some infrastructure issues. And one of them is on the Big Island, and that one should be starting construction later this year.
And you know what the rents are gonna be?
They're having to, the ones that closed, I have them in file.
Okay, if you can send that to us.
Certainly.
Because I get what the director is saying, but they still can charge up to 4,300 a month. That doesn't mean, you're saying that doesn't mean that's what they're gonna charge. You're just trying to qualify them.
Yes, they would have to, the pro formas that we get have limits on what they can show for vacancy. So, they're more incentivized to show something realistic that's gonna lease up properly. So the original project the original tier 2 that we did, the AMI range was 80 to 100. So it did cap the rents at 100% AMI.
Okay, can we see the differences between how you had it at the beginning
Mhm.
and then the more recent award so we can see how it changed?
Sure.
And then how we either expanded it to be of more assistance or we ended up limiting it to be of more assistance, depending on which group you're trying to help.
Okay, yeah, we can definitely do that. The one project that did close, they had no request for additional resources. So, and then the next one that's up to close, they were forcing them to stay in the box that they were
Yeah.
awarded as
And
well.
this you're gonna use with existing funds or you need additional?
We do have a request in for additional tier 2 funds because the original funds for the original project were all allocated, and that's in a separate bucket that we have for tier 2 projects. So we would need a separate allocation for that.
Okay. So I think what we might have to do is before the Senate gets the budget is actually do a site visit or talk to some of the awardees to get more comfortable because I think some of us have at least either questions or some concerns we want to try to get addressed.
So is HCDA supporting the Kaka'ako project that OHA has? And
Oh, no, we're gonna get to them. Yeah, we can get to HD.
CDs.
So I believe we're
Or
also going to
next.
have a working group of developers as well that we can get feedback from, but we'll also forward that information for you folks if you're not able to attend
Okay.
that.
We can move on then.
And then again, sorry, I'm still on readiness, but we were in the vein of trying to get these projects more ready. We were thinking of partnering with CDFIs to provide even shorter term loans to developers to get their projects sort of over that last hurdle financially
Yeah, but
before.
who does this really help? I mean, and who are the developers that are,
I think what I'd be targeting is mainly the smaller nonprofit developers who don't have enough financial resources or enough sources of capital to have these funds borrowed or outstanding.
like, what would be
for
an
this fund.
example?
This could be
Habitat?
It could be Habitat, it could be Hawai'i Island Community Development Corporation on the Big Island. They're a smaller nonprofit developer. Just other developers who may not even be in the LIHTC space yet, but who have that commitment to have affordability, but just don't have the resources that larger developers may have to get these funds. Because most of these pre-development funds have to be either funded internally with capital that a
And
large
you
company.
guys have a track record of, well, we can see the impacts.
Well, we haven't done this before, but we can show track records of certain developers who have applied and just haven't been able to get to that point that we think this could assist. But with the CDFI being involved with helping disperse and collect the funds, they would do a lot of financial vetting to make sure that they're liquid to pay these funds back, regardless of even if the project closes, these funds will be due anyway.
Okay, the only reason why is before we get the budget, I think we have to take a better look at all these different programs to determine if this is what we fund, or if we actually go and fund property acquisition, infrastructure, like be specific. So I don't think that we should shortchange housing, but I think we might need to redirect where we're going to be spending the money.
Certainly.
Okay, what else you got?
And the last one for RHF is loan guarantees and credit enhancement. This was, Ryan? Whoops. I do that. Oh. There we go. Sorry. So this is last year's Act 235. So what this would do would be for the uncommitted funds in RHRF, we would be able to guarantee loans so that builders and developers could go to their bank and say that they could get better terms on their loans to lower their cost of housing because the state would reserve funds to.
Okay, so when are you going to start this?
This one we actually could do the quickest. We would just need to know that we have what pot of the money we have now that we're going to set aside to do these loan guarantees. There's already a model in place. There's a revenue stream we could set up. So we would have to set up rules for this to gain the revenue stream back into the RHRF.
So
And
this was signed when?
this was
June?
Yeah, this
July?
was July last year.
Wait, what's taking so long on the rules?
Well, this was sort of an idea that just came about recently because it's a newer use of the RHRF that a developer assisted us with figuring out that could be beneficial, mainly in the environment we're in now, which is higher interest rates. So this was sort of a new development and figuring out a use of the fund that we could do.
Yeah, but it was eminent. I mean, it got passed, it got signed.
Yeah, I think it was mainly the credit enhancement portion that was mentioned in the bill, but that
So
could
when do
be,
you expect to finish the rules?
we can work on those right away. I can get you a timeline for that.
Okay, get us a timeline.
Yeah.
Okay, what else you got?
I'll just go quickly through this. Oops. Oh,
Sorry.
one more yours.
Sorry. So these are home ownership programs that we want to use. So this is restarting the Hula May mortgage program and the down payment assistance program for homeowners. So this is what we want to do to provide low cost loans for affordable purchasers, assisting them not just with down payment, but also
But these
with
are
higher cost loans.
existing, yeah?
These are existing programs. We haven't done Hula May in a while because the agency had done the mortgage credit certificate program, but that was more of an inefficient use of the bond cap that we share with the multifamily side. So with
Yeah,
this,
So, but with these two programs, at what interest rate does it make it worth it? And then at what interest rate should you stop?
for
these
the lenders, at the borrower's end.
Yeah, for these two programs.
Yeah, I think that, we're looking at probably maybe a 50 basis point, 75 basis point below the market that this demographic could qualify for. That would be our spread. But the real sell for this for homeowners is the down payment assistance, because this is what we think that people who can service a mortgage, meaning they can make the payment every month, they just can't save this much for a down payment. So that's the real sell with this, is that, we're going to give you this down payment assistance loan. It's deferred all the way to the end when you buy, sell, or transfer. So that's really what gets you in the door. And then the discounted mortgage, would be competitive with market. Again, it would be 50 to 75 basis points below market. So I think it's a good deal all around, but really it's that down payment assistance that lenders, when we've pulled them, have been really excited about. So we think that this will really make a difference.
Chair, question. with regards to subject matter. So with this said, does this qualification for the mortgage program only has to be with your developments, or it could be the loan program for individuals?
It's for individual homeowners, so
Right, yeah.
the mortgage companies would sign
You
up.
continue it because
Yeah.
it worked before, yeah.
Yeah, this one is really in the work. We're really close on this one. We've had stakeholder meetings, we've had mortgage meetings. So people are looking forward to this, and I'm really excited to see this roll out again too. So
And with that said, it probably could do a great assistance to the Kaka'ako Makai project to going forward if it continues.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
oh, no, thank you, Senator. Yeah, I mean, and we want to stand this one up, as quickly as we can. And the best part about this program is because it's structured as a mortgage revenue bond, it's self-sustaining. So there's no once we use we're going to carve out a little bit of the private activity bonds. We'll do that bond sale. And once we sell that, the spread we get.
So this is a
we'll fund everything.
self-sustaining program.
Yes,
So you're not going to ask us for this.
no.
Okay, you can move on.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll cover our DERF balances and anticipated uses. So right now for DERF, we have an uncommitted balance of about $91 million. We also have what's called $74 million of restricted funds, and this is the seller financing that HHFDC provided when we sold the leasehold interest in our rental housing portfolio. That those funds are being repaid in full this year, which time they will be available also. That's $74 million. And the list shows anticipated uses for DERF. There's a lot of infrastructure obligations that we have in the village of Kapolei, in Waihole, and also funding to support HHFDC's development projects on the Big Island, and also some DERF loans that we anticipate coming this year. So yes, we do have a considerable DERF balance, but we also do have considerable expenses that are funded through DERF.
Yeah, no, I get balancing all of that, but if the governor said his number one priority is housing, you would think that the housing agencies are going to say, okay, what do we do to ramp it up? What's the goal the governor has, and how do we work backwards from that so we can achieve it within his 8-year period? Not us just giving you blank checks, lump sums, and then you guys go figure it out. That doesn't really, there's no goal attached to that. That's just saying, oh, we have money, come apply. Okay, what else you got?
Just 2 more slides. Just want to cover the DERF equity program, which was authorized by the legislature in 2023. Very quickly, what this program does is allows HHFDC to buy down the price of a unit, and HHFDC is paid back as equity plus shared appreciation upon subsequent sale of that unit. And there are 80 units participating in this program now in 3 projects. And $7.4 million of the $10 million has been committed. And it's been very well received by both developers and first-time home buyers. And we're very excited about the possibility of this becoming permanent. There are several bills making its way through this year that will make the program permanent. What's really great about this program is that it can be combined with a DERF loan to help those for sale projects that are stalled to move ahead. When you talk about being proactive, that's what this program will do. There are many projects where they can't move ahead with the higher interest rates we have right now because when rates rise, we have to lower their sales prices because buyers qualify for a smaller mortgage, but they're hit on the cost side by higher development costs. So with this program, we can provide state equity basically, which keeps the prices low, and the state gets paid back its equity plus shared appreciation upon sale. So it's move projects ahead. It promotes home ownership, and it's a revolving fund. It's fiscally responsible. And this is a summary of our 5-year unit projection. I'll say we have pretty high confidence in the 25, 26, even 27 numbers because
What was your
those are
2024 number?
2024 was lower than usual. Projects that we were anticipating closing this year moved into getting closed this year, but they're under construction.
Okay, so you can see why we're concerned,
Yes.
because the track record has been stuck at about, the average is 792, according to your annual report.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
That's not gonna help us.
we are,
That's so slow.
yes, we're focused on hitting these targets here.
I'm not even sure that's enough. I mean,
So I,
look at that, 5 years.
we would
and
like to
then-
see more ourselves, yes.
Yeah, so you guys gotta come up with a plan then, and then work within what we're already doing with the TOD plan.
Can you tell us what's the delay or you not being able to meet the goal of the units you project over the years? Is there,
In most cases, it's either permitting takes longer than anticipated or they hit construction delays while the project's under construction. But
so if the permitting, this is from the city,
yeah, from the counties.
from the counties? Have we had this discussion with the city?
I know that they're working very hard to revamp their permitting processes and that they do give priority to affordable
Well,
housing.
Yes, okay, but have you guys had discussions? You know,
Not,
because
not to,
most of our projects are for low income or rental
Mm-hmm.
housing that our communities need.
So
So
we-
it would behoove the city to to be more helpful.
we do work with our developers and track the status and try to push the permits through for our projects.
I don't know if that's helping us understand what the issue is. I'm just saying,
Yeah, you gotta let us know where you're stuck at the city, and then we can help maybe. Pass legislation, introduce resos. Former council members can go over there, figure it out.
Well, not just me. There's several of us.
But you're the freshest. You have all the, you know what's going on.
So real quick, going back to tier two, what is the amount? Because last year we were told that we needed to top off tier two with 25 million, which we did. But I heard that that's not enough to get all these projects off the ground. How much are you planning on dipping into the 75 to get all the initial 150 million projects off the ground?
We are still waiting for a firm cost from some of our developers, but it probably will be over $25 million
In addition or
in
on?
addition.
Okay, so we need to be clear that the 75 that you're requesting right off the top, the 25 mil is gonna go to cost overruns then.
Well, that's not good. See, we're assuming that that's actually gonna be new units.
Mhm.
Oh.
And again, this is why we would like to focus on readiness, because the reason these developers are saying they need more money is because of inflation, because of design changes.
Well, and part of it is there's very little infrastructure out there. And then they gotta finance that.
Mhm.
That's where I think that's a low hanging fruit for us, that if we put that in,
Yeah.
then we don't have to fund them direct if we're putting in all that infrastructure. That saves them quite a bit of money.
But I think the point here is if we're gonna do tier two, and I have to say, like tier two is an experiment. We have no new units yet of tier two. That's correct, right? Nothing's been constructed.
No.
So we need to be very thoughtful on how we redesign this program if we're gonna do it another tranche.
Yeah, I don't know if
Because-
we should make it permanent until we know that it's something that has results.
So I think we have to really think deeply about it. And I think you have a chance to fix this problem before you get too deep into it of, is it the readiness that is what we should be targeting? Or, and maybe there's a certain point that we're going to tell these people, okay, took too long, let's move on, right? Who's the next person up? But we need to have some clarity before we can commit to another round of tier two. In my mind, it's especially if we haven't gotten anything out the door yet. But I think that the if you look at the overarching concern, what tier two is trying to solve is that we're trying to solve the 60 to 140, right? But we actually have to have something, right? But so it's in the process. It's in the financing that we need to understand, because if we're going to throw more money at it, and we know right off the top 25 mil is going to go to the cost overruns, then we need to weigh that. Right? Because maybe it's just at a certain point where we just got to go focus on something like Pohukaina because it's on state-owned property, right? And we say we're
Kind is one of the tier two projects.
no, exactly. I know that, and so that's why we might have to say, okay, we don't have a lot of tier two, so we're just going to focus on Pohukaina because it's our property, right? And we're not. It's too bad for the other people if they're going to ask for cost overruns, right? So we kind of need to. We know that information, and I think we don't know that. We're just talking to other people and finding this out. But you guys got to tell us that, right? So anyway, thank you, Chair.
Okay, we only got 10 minutes left, so why don't we do public housing real quick? Oh, who's next? Oh, HCDA.
HPA.
Sorry.
HPA.
Just go over table 6, Craig. No, just if we have questions on your slide deck, we can ask you later.
Okay,
Just go over table 6,
okay.
unless you have that up on yours.
I have
The first slide.
Yeah. Okay,
Oh, it's the first slide.
Yep.
Okay,
Of
good.
our-
and I'm joined here by Garrett Sasaki, CFO, and Ryan Tam, my Planning and Development Director.
They want theirs up.
While we're waiting for that, can I? I want to respond to some of the stuff
Go ahead.
that we talked about HHFDC real quickly. So and I'm sure you know this, on Friday, February 21st is the TOD meeting. And a lot of the projects that you were talking about that are in the budget are going to be discussed at that meeting. So the other thing is $436 million is in the budget that the governor sent down. And we will send you a copy of all of that. And it addressed some of the
You mean the
requests.
breakdown?
Yes, it's broken down in the budget and we will send it to you. But we do know that we need to change. I think there's a big commitment from HHFDC to address the things that were brought up today.
Well, 2 years ago, we added money in for TOD, for infrastructure. We worked with the TOD Council, we worked with Office of Planning, and most of that got vetoed. So that's the better approach, is to be very specific with projects so that we can see results. But
Understood.
I mean, you sit on that board, you heard what we said. Hopefully you can make an impact.
Understood.
Maybe same attendance record as HTA, and then we know we'll
I
get
knew
the
this was
results.
coming, but I wanted to make sure
Yeah, it's a
process.
governor's priority, so you guys really should put a lot more effort into it.
Thank you.
Okay, Craig.
Okay, good morning, chairs, vice chairs, and members of the committees. Craig Nakamoto, Executive Director of the HCDA. So I'll just quickly go over this table 6 items, and then if you have questions.
This
open
is
the-
operating.
This is CIP.
Oh, where's your operating?
Uh,
Our operating is just personnel.
Yeah, what is it? How much?
For general fund, 2,026,000, special fund, 2,554,000.
So this is so that you can what?
Sorry,
What was the reason for the request?
which one?
For your operating?
Personnel.
Oh,
That's just our regular office staff
No, that's not in
salary.
your base?
It is, that's operating.
No, yeah, I'm asking for, and table 6 is all new requests for operating. Nothing.
we have one position.
One position.
Yeah,
Okay.
one position to make, the Act 97, there were 2 temporary positions that expired June
So you're trying to
2025.
make it permanent.
One of them, yeah.
Okay.
One of them. Sorry, Senator. Yeah,
Okay, and then this is your CIP request.
correct. That is.
Okay, why don't you quickly go over this so that we can get public housing?
Okay, I don't want to take away too much from Hakeem's time, so I'm gonna break it up. The first 3 are housing related. The the 4th one is related to, workforce development, and the last 3 are related to planning. So the first is roughly 30 million CIP request for the 99-year leasehold program. The details of that are on slide 3. And we're still working on the feasibility study for that project. The site that's slated for that is the site at the corner of Kapilani and Ward, the Jack in a Box Gallagher.
Yeah.
And this 30 million, Chair, would be to part of the financing stack. And it would be to in essence, purchase an asset. And it would be to purchase the parking garage and the commercial space.
Yeah.
Okay. The next item is UH West Wall Infrastructure Phase 2.
This is so old. You gotta get something going.
Well, we did get something going, Senator. So Phase 1 is funds that were appropriated last year. As you recall, they were A funds, so we had to encumber by June 30th, 2024. So we have encumbered the funds for Phase 1, which is the developments for parcels 3 and 4 up there. We've got a contractor going, and they're going to build road infrastructure and other utilities. And then HHFDC is going to issue an RFP for a housing mixed-use development first on parcel 4. So this request, Chair, is for the second phase, which is for parcels 5 and 7. Similar concept, it would be a University Village housing mixed-use development. And this kind of road infrastructure is in accordance with the UH land use plan and master plan for the campus. Okay, next slide. The other ask is for Ivole Kapalama. Again, this is part of our TOD responsibilities, 206E Part 10. Last session, the legislature appropriated 25 million to do electrical upgrades that are going to support the Liha Civic Center and Mayor Wright Housing Phase 2. So this additional almost 62 million would be to continue drainage and electrical upgrades that are going to support Mayor Wright Housing and Liha Civic Center. Next slide. This slide is possible land acquisition for a film studio and improvements in Kalailua. This is a parcel that is located next to the existing film studio that DBED is renting from the Navy, and it would be for additional production stages and also for workforce development. Now, the amount in the budget right now is 500,000. It was reduced to the DBED and actually budget and finance process. But so the 500,000 is not enough for the acquisition.
What was the ask?
The ask,
No, the original ask is in table 4.
and it was Senator, was 14 million.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next 3 are part of our planning function at HCDA. So Kaka'ako Makai planning, there's 1 million in the budget right now to allow us to do planning and community engagement for Kaka'ako Makai. And that would involve looking at various land uses, looking at suitability, environmental issues, and considering various land uses that have been suggested, including residential, hotel, and other uses. Just so you're aware, when we did the last iteration of the Makai area rules, the 2023 rules, we didn't consider residential, we didn't consider hotel, and we didn't do any major, kind of planning. What we did was to kind of streamline the rules a little bit, to upgrade it, to update it to MAUCA, simplify the permit types and so forth. So the 2023 was really minor changes to the rules, but didn't consider these kind of major land uses, nor did it consider 400 feet or a 10 FAR that's being suggested right now. It did not. So this money would be to plan for that and study that.
Okay.
The next one is climate change impact assessment. This is pursuant to Act 221. And it requires us to study the impacts of climate change on the design and siting of buildings in the Kaka'ako district and then the Kalailua district. So this is the money we need to do assessment plus rulemaking for that. The final item is the Kalailua infrastructure environmental impact statement. Currently, my planning team is doing a infrastructure master plan through RM-TAO to look at the various infrastructure needs in Kalailua, including electrical and drainage.
What's the total acreage?
What is the?
It's about 3,400.
Yeah. Yep. And what we need to do after the infrastructure master plan is to do an EIS to follow that.
Do you have a master plan already?
No, so Senator, we're doing,
Did he answer your question, Michelle? He has the $1 million to do the planning on the Makai side.
Yeah.
And then he can analyze.
But we haven't seen. They're gonna show.
so Senator, we have a plan and rules for the Kailua district, which we are also updating. The planning team is updating that. We are also doing a Kailua infrastructure master plan to determine electrical needs, drainage needs. Once that's done, then we'll follow it up with environmental impact statement for the whole district that takes into account all those things.
So who do you work with to develop your master plan? Is it only in-house or do you work with the community or businesses in the area? I'm specifically talking about UH West Oahu area.
So Senator Kidani, the UH West Oahu, as I mentioned, last session, we got money to do, as part of our TOD responsibilities, we got money to do the roads. These roads were already identified as roads that needed to support UH's already completed, kind of campus plan. So they did the campus plan. These roads are to support development along Kualakai Parkway, which is University Village and related retail and commercial. So it's part of the UH's campus plan.
Okay, Senator Kim.
Yeah, there's a follow-up on that. So you are dovetailing it with the UH plan.
Yeah.
And when is the UH plan? Do you know when that's coming online? Because that's been standstill.
So my understanding, Senator, is that the UH campus plan has already been done, and then this road.
That's not the question.
Oh, sorry.
When are they going to actually effectuate the plan? Because it's been on hold. It's been dormant.
For the
So do you know-
entire asset, not just the campus, or just the campus.
No, just that whole part of the redevelopment part for the village, the campus village.
Okay, so
Right.
sorry, Senator, I misunderstood the question. So we have the money to do the first phase, parcels 3 and 4, to finish that roadway. This is part of a collaboration between UH and
No, she's
HHFDC.
asking when.
Yeah.
When?
HHFDC is going to issue a RFP for the housing, I think in March of this year.
Yeah, but what about the UH portion? Do you know when they're gonna? Because they had a developer and then they can't agree and they pull out. So I'm not sure what the status is.
Sorry, Senator, I don't have the answer to that one. I think I'd have to talk to Calvert and then come back. I
Okay,
don't
well,
have
if
the
you guys
answer.
are
to that.
collaborating, there should be
Yeah.
some
Yeah, yeah.
big plans.
Sure.
So we.
At least
we
on
can-
timeline, so
Yeah.
they.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and what's going on. Okay,
Yeah.
the second question, if I may, the film studio that you folks are looking at, who are you working with on that? And is there one that was supposed to be in that whole UH area? Was there a film
But-
studio for around that area?
But you guys are doing this at the request of Creative Industries.
Correct. This is in the Kailua district.
Right.
So who answers this? You or Jimmy?
I think, you want me to answer this part? Okay, sure. So, Senator, so I know that UH has their own ACM or creative center. For this one, in the Kailua Community District, there is an existing film studio that is being leased by DBED from the Navy on a month-to-month basis. And we're working on a longer-term lease for that studio. Adjacent to this studio is what's called Parcel 10. It was a former site of Tamura's store. Right now, Swinnerton is using it as a warehouse, and the plan is through DBED to acquire that property to complement the film studio, have kind of workforce development training on that parcel.
So wasn't there also a proposal for a film studio near West Oahu?
Yes,
We can do it.
What is that?
I think that was on the West Oahu campus, right?
That's a.
Yeah, on the West Hall campus. Yeah.
No, not the ACM building, a full-on studio, film studio. No?
Yeah. Yeah, I have to check with UH on that,
Yeah,
Senator.
wasn't that what you guys were proposing that? it was open?
Yeah, but this probably is managed more by CID, right? Not you.
It is the event
So you
after
might,
it's
you
acquired.
might ask Lynn to have an info briefing
Yeah, because
specifically
if
on
we're looking at
CID.
two different studios and then we have the.
Well, and the one they have now is not being used.
Oh, yeah,
It's a big waste.
Okay, well, Jimmy, here's what you guys are saying. So he'll coordinate to figure out how we can get CID and all that stuff and have a bigger,
Crazy that we're gonna have.
okay, come on, we gotta go.
Okay, so what I don't understand, I know you guys gotta make it clear. University of Hawaii was gonna put out, and I think they did, we don't know what happened to the award.
The film studio, this
Yeah,
film, okay,
yeah.
wait, why don't we hold film studio questions till Jimmy can gather all the different stakeholders, CID, West Oahu, all of it, and then that way we can have a comprehensive. Because I agree with you guys, the way it's presented is it looks like left hand doesn't know what right hand's doing.
Yeah, but I
There's so
don't feel that
many
we should
engine-
spend the money on that, what they're talking about. We should move then divert the money in the infrastructure right next to the university. It was supposed to actually originally be built.
Yeah, so maybe we can, okay, 30 seconds, what you can, because we still got public housing.
Yeah, oh. Not that, Senator Kim and Senator Decoit had a briefing last week, so a lot of those questions were flushed out, and so the responses.
Even know
We-
about this. I didn't even know about.
No, I think what they were having it was ACM. What they're asking for is the bigger picture of the
We will-
development of
We will
studios.
coordinate
Thank you, Senator.
with all of the different.
Right, so that's where I think all three of them are asking more about, hey, how does this studio work? Who's involved, which agencies, what's the MOAs?
We've been
What's the
dealing with the
plan?
Navy. Yes, we have the responses to that. Thank you.
Because it's gonna be CID that manages it.
Yes.
Yes,
And-
okay,
yeah.
okay, thanks. Okay, Hakeem. Okay, Senator Hashimoto. Everybody just look at table 6, and if you have questions, just ask him directly about table 6, but Senator Hashimoto has a question. Because we got like 1 minute.
All right, so Hakeem, the big question is your mayor right infusion.
Yes, thank you.
Do you need that money under you, or can we direct that to another place like the rental housing revolving fund? Because it's 60+ million that you're asking for directly to you, right?
Yes, thank you. I think it'd be quicker spent. It'll give us some additional points in QAP if it comes directly to us.
But you have to go back to HHFDC anyway to get the low income housing tax credit. So why are we giving you money instead of doing a carve out in the rental housing revolving fund? And at least they have oversight over how you're spending.
There'll always be oversight, but it helps us to secure that money. And it also for the 10,000 in the QAP, $10,000 per unit, giving that for the HBHA gives us additional points when we apply. It also
So even
almost more.
even if we do a carve out at rental housing revolving fund, because what I'm worried about is if we give the money directly to you, where does the money revolve? Or are you asking us you're not going to revolve that funds?
It revolves into the account that we have, and it goes right back
So what are
into
you
the
gonna-
state.
No, but what are you going to do with your fund? Because now we're creating a whole different revolving fund for housing under you. And then we have the rental housing revolving fund. So I'm just trying to understand, because I know this is what you asked the governor, he put it in, but I don't know if there's a broader plan to figure out how we're actually going to do housing moving forward, because now we're opening a whole nother Pandora's box of a different revolving fund now. And then, you know, HHFDC, you just heard them, they're having a hard time figuring out using their revolving fund.
Yeah. We will be able, it's almost the same, but I think it comes back to us. It goes, I mean, if you want to give it to HHFDC, then we got it just.
Okay,
We lose
we
certain
can submit
points.
some questions to you in writing that you can respond to.
Yes, we can.
And then we can work with housing committee to actually have a briefing based once you give us the responses.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you.